all the way to your right, all the way to Lake Michigan. And it burned in front of us all the way to Fullerton Avenue. To give you an idea, 3.5 square miles of Chicago, or 9 square kilometers, burned completely to the ground in 36 hours. 100,000 people became homeless. 300 people died in that fire. We burned to the ground. The only thing remained was a very seldom utility shed, storage house made of stone. Our sidewalks were made of wood. Everything burned completely to the ground. So our city leaders and bankers and financiers and developers traveled around the country recruiting development. Please help rebuild Chicago. Please invest. If you're an architect, how cool is it for you? You've got a blank slate. Design Chicago from a blank slate. That might be why we're home to so many architecture firms to this day. Now, the limerick said that Mrs. O'Leary's cow tipped over a lantern and started the fire. Not true. Unfortunately, someone misreported that in a small publication, and in today's words, that misreporting and misinformation went viral. That is not the case, but the O'Leary family suffered a lot of hardship for many generations afterward because of that. In the 1990s, the O'Leary family was officially exonerated. Now, we had our folks travel around the country saying, come help rebuild Chicago. And why did the fire spread? Well, we had drier summer, dry fall, it was very windy, and you know that Chicago is known as the Windy City. But we're not known as the Windy City because we have a lot of wind. We're known as the Windy City, the same reason that the city you live in could be called the Windy City. The reason we're called the Windy City is because our politicians are full of hot air. And I don't think we're alone in that. We had to brag about our city, especially when we wanted the World's Fair to come here in Chicago. So because we were puffed up bragging about our city, and our city leaders and politicians were puffed up, we're called the Windy City. That's how we got our nickname. Now, up ahead on the right, you can see a dark gray pyramid roof with a silver statue at the top. That's the Chicago Board of Trade, 1930, Halliburton Root. The statue is Ceres. She's the goddess of grain presiding over the Chicago Board of Trade. This building is often filmed in movies and TV shows about Chicago or in Chicago. Look down from the statue, you'll see a greenish glass addition to the building sticking out toward us, and that addition has a round medallion. That addition was made in the 1980s, designed by architect Helmut Jahn, who's designed some skyscrapers for Chicago. Unfortunately for Mr. Jahn, however, a few years ago, he was out riding his bike, got hit by a car and was killed. Now, inspiration. Let's get back to that theme of inspiration. Look ahead on the right for that dark gray glass skyscraper, light gray balconies sticking out toward us. What was the inspiration for this design? You can whisper to your neighbor, they'll hold you accountable. The answer is Chicago traffic. The long balconies are semi-trucks, the short balconies are cars traveling left to right on busy Van Buren. That's 235 West Van Buren, 2009, Ralph Johnson, Perkins and Will. That is his inspiration for that design. Now look ahead on the right, there is a pink granite skyscraper with a round crown at the top. 311 South Wacker, 1990, Kohn Pedersen Fox. Look at the round crown, it lights up at night. It was built next to a world famous building, so Kohn Pedersen Fox wanted their building to look as different as possible. They put that round crown at the top, it lights up, but we learned an important lesson. When the building opened in 1990, the crown is too bright. It interfered with bird migration, so we actually have to lower the intensity of that brightness of the crown. Keep your eyes ahead on the right for the brown skyscraper, the tallest building in sight. It has 2 antennae at the top. That tallest building in sight on the right, that's the Willis Tower, 1974. Skidmore, Owings and Merrill. Bruce Graham, lead architect. Fosler Kahn, lead engineer. Look at its shape and guess what the inspiration was for this design. If you said the inspiration was a new packet of cigarettes, you win. Why is that? When you open up a new packet of cigarettes and you tap on it, the cigarettes pop out at different lengths, all bundled together. It gave the lead engineer and architect the idea for a bundled tube concept. This building is 9 square tubes on a 3x3 grid, bundled together, all rising to different heights. Only 2 tubes rise to the very top height. Ahead on the right on the river, is another brown steel and glass building from the 1970s. Look at the wall facing the river and locate the red rectangle. The red rectangle is saying, "You are here." This is a map. The building's from the 70s, but the map was added in the 2000s to differentiate the building, and the red rectangle is saying, "You are here" on the map. Keep your eyes up to the right, get another look at Willis Tower, and locate the 5 glass balconies sticking out toward us. They're on the observation deck way up high. You can go out on those glass floored balconies, look at your feet, and you'll see the street more than 100 floors below your feet. That's the observation deck. Very, very cool up there. Looking ahead on the right, there is a white building with columns at the base. If you look up at the white building, you'll notice part of it comes up higher than the other. Architect Harry Weiss designed this building. It's 2 triangular-shaped buildings pushed together. They share a hypotenuse. Harry Weiss designed those river cottages. He likes triangles. Look at the columns at the base. Notice what he did. The columns are square, but Mr. Weiss rotated them to give the illusion that they are triangular in shape. Because again, the triangle is his favorite shape. Now we're going to look ahead of us on the left in the distance. There's a red brick building with a round clock face. It says Intelsat below it. This building is from 1913-1914 time frame. It's one of the buildings designed by architect Daniel Burnham. He's the architect who created that master plan for Chicago, wanting to keep Chicago beautiful, call it Paris on the Prairie. And Mr. Burnham and a partner designed our World's Fair that we held here in 1893. So the building ahead with Intelsat, that was one of the buildings Mr. Burnham designed. Clock face on the outside because watches were very expensive at the time. So you wanted to impress people by having a clock face on the outside, helping them and helping them remember your building with that clock face. Continue looking forward on the left. To the right of Intelsat, we have a glass skyscraper. Part of it is lower than the other part. The left-hand side is lower. The part on the left-hand side, you can see an exposed roof. You can see exposed beams. That's called an exposed truss system. This is the Boeing building from 1990, Ralph Johnson of Perkins and Will. Why does this part of the building have that exposed roof line or exposed truss? The reason is all these railroads on the left. The southwest corner of this building does not touch the ground. It hovers above railroads, does not touch the ground. It's able to do that because of that exposed truss system holding the building up. Look on the left, after the bridge, the large limestone structure from 1929. 2 North Riverside Plaza on our left. Holabird and Root were the architects. This was home to the Chicago Daily News for many years. In the center of the building is an outdoor plaza. In 1929, you didn't want to spend a lot of time on the river. It didn't smell the greatest. But perhaps they're thinking ahead to days and times like today when our river is much cleaner and enjoyable. We call that building where we took our giant selfie. That's 150 North Riverside. It's again ahead on the left-hand side now. All glass building with a very narrow base. When the building opened, the architects met with the docents. They got to go to that meeting and they said, because the building ahead on the left, 150 North Riverside with a narrow base, because it looks like it would be unsteady with a narrow base, we knew the average person would be hesitant to have an office in there. But our engineers figured out how to design the building Anchor it to the ground so the building met all requirements for sway or movement under high winds.